Okay, so we're always checking the weather, right? Like, it's almost an obsession. Our phones, those 5-day forecasts that are like, will it rain? Won't it rain? Who knows? But what if I told you we've like barely scratched the surface of what's possible with weather info? Get ready to dive deep today because we're going to be looking at tomorrow.io's weather forecast API. And before you like completely tune out at API, trust me on this, it's cool. We're talking about getting our hands on some crazy specific weather data that goes way beyond do I need an umbrella today? Think like smarter cities, better event planning, maybe even like, dare I say, no more soggy picnics. And to help break it all down is an expert in all things weather and APIs.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So first things first, what is an API? Like if you had to explain it to, say, my grandma, what would you say?
Okay, so imagine you're craving pizza. You pick up the phone, order it from the restaurant, right? That phone call, that's kind of like an API. It's like a messenger that lets systems talk to each other. So your phone talking to tomorrow.io's weather database.
So I'm like placing my order. I want weather on Tuesday at 2 p.m. And the API is how that request gets to tomorrow.io and how they send me back the data pizza.
Exactly. And just like pizza toppings, you can get really specific with the weather you want. That's where this API gets really cool. We're not just talking basic temperature here, but like detailed location-specific forecasts down to the minute.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Tell me more about this whole hyper-local forecasting, because I'm already thinking about how this could have saved my weekend plans last week.
Let's say you're planning an outdoor concert. Instead of just crossing your fingers and hoping for the best based on like the general city forecast, you can use this API, put in the exact location, even just the address, and get super detailed weather data just for that spot.
Wait, hold up. Are you saying I could get a forecast for my backyard that's actually accurate? No more blaming the weather app for my soggy lawn party?
You got it. We're talking minute-by-minute forecast for the next hour, hourly forecast for the next 5 days, even daily forecast beyond that.
Okay, this is next level. But beyond just dodging raindrops, where does this level of detail actually make a difference? Like, I have to imagine this data has some serious real-world uses.
Oh, absolutely. This goes way beyond dodging a little rain. Think about it. Construction companies using this to plan projects. No more costly weather delays.
Right, or farmers, like knowing exactly when to irrigate and protect their crops.
Exactly. Or energy companies using it to predict, like solar and wind power. We're talking about some big impacts here.
Okay, so you mentioned weather en routes before, and like the name alone, I'm picturing some futuristic road trip movie. What is that all about?
So imagine you're a trucker and you've got a long haul ahead. Weather on routes lets you put in your entire route and get these hyperlocal forecasts, like every step of the way. Rain, wind speed, visibility, everything.
Wow, so it's not just checking the weather at your destination, it's like having a weather forecast for every mile of the journey.
Exactly. It's a game changer for logistics. Anyone planning a trip, really. No more getting stuck in a snowstorm because the forecast just said partly cloudy.
Those generic weather apps are shaking in their boots right now. So we've talked a lot about using this API, but I gotta be honest, looking at the actual code, it's a little intimidating. Can you break it down for those of us who aren't exactly coding whizzes?
Sure, you don't really need to be a coder to get it. Those code snippets are basically like different ways to ask the API for data, and it sends back the info in a format computers understand, like JSON or XML.
So it's less about understanding every single line and more about knowing how to ask for the right info, kind of like figuring out the menu at your favorite takeout place.
Exactly. It's like the code is the language you use to talk to the API. You tell it what data you want, where you want it for, how detailed you need it to be, and the API packages it all up and sends it back.
Okay, that makes me feel a lot better, less intimidated by the code and more like, hey, I can tap into this awesome data too.
That's the spirit. Once you get the basics down, it's really about unleashing that inner weather nerd and seeing what's possible.
So we've gone from like, what's an API, to basically ordering up custom weather forecasts like it's nothing.
And honestly, we've only just scratched the surface. There's so much more.
That's what's so cool about these deep dives. You start with something simple like, how do I check the weather? And you end up like, whoa, this tech could change the game for so many things.
Yeah, like imagine city planners using this data, designing smarter cities, better drainage systems, less flooding.
Or architects designing buildings that can adapt to the wind in real time. That would be wild.
Right. We could be living in a world where weather data isn't just about reacting, it's about predicting and planning ahead.
This is blowing my mind. Like, it's not just about staying dry anymore. It's about using this information to make smarter decisions everywhere.
And it all starts with having the right data. which is what makes this API so powerful.
So as we wrap up this deep dive on tomorrow.io's weather forecast API, what's the one big takeaway you want listeners to remember?
I'd say don't underestimate knowing your weather. This API gives you the power to get those hyperlocal forecasts that can change how you plan, how you work, even just how you experience the world.
It's like having a secret weapon against bad weather. No more surprises, just pure data at your fingertips.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe it'll even turn all of us into weather nerds in the process.
That's it for today's deep dive. We've explored the what, the how, and the why of tomorrow.io's weather forecast API. Now it's your turn to go explore. Check out their website, play with the API, see what you can discover. Until next time, stay curious and stay dry.